Okay guys, UFC's pay-per-views are back this weekend, starting off with UFC 311 from Los Angeles, California. I'm going to be giving you guys my predictions and breakdowns of the main card. Make sure to watch the entire video because some of my predictions may shock you and might be a little bit controversial. Also, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you guys would like to watch my live stream this weekend of UFC 311. We do them every month for the pay-per-views. I know you guys enjoy them and you don't want to miss out, so make sure you hit that subscribe. All right, let's get into the fights together. Okay, so the first fight, we have Kevin Holland versus Reinier de Ridder. Kevin Holland 26-12-0. Reinier de Ridder 18-2-0. This is his second UFC bout. United States versus Netherlands, 6'3 versus 6'4, 78-inch reach for de Ridder, 81-inch reach for Kevin Holland, 40-41 on the leg reach. Kevin Holland, a slight favorite, minus 125 versus Reinier de Ridder's 105. Okay, so looking at Kevin Holland's last 5 fights, lost to Delice, he beat Michael Oleksiejczuk. I always butcher that surname. Lost to Michael Page, lost to Jack Della Maddalena, close fight that one was, and he beat Michael Chiesa. So he's 2-3 in his last 5. If we go down to Reinier de Ridder's record, he's 3-2 in his last 5. That's a grappling match. That doesn't count. He beat Gerald Meerschaert rather unconvincingly in his UFC debut, but he still got the job done. And yeah, he's before that he was at UAE Warriors and then had 2 losses at 1 championship. Okay, so for this fight, we know Reinier de Ridder is going to want to take it to the ground. He's a high level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Kevin Holland, not bad at counter wrestling. I still can never get out of my mind how Khamzat Chimaev absolutely ragdolled him in their fight. I'm not really much of a Kevin Holland fan, to be honest with you. I'm also not so much of a fan of fighters coming from other promotions to the UFC. Most of the time, the hype is not real, and you know they get their flame put out fairly quickly. You know, I'm leaning towards Reinier de Ridder, honestly, in this one. But I think Kevin Holland has a lot more tools to beat him, and I can easily see this being a victory for Kevin Holland via KO or TKO, particularly because de Ridder's stand-up was not that great, and his performance in the UFC was not great the last time. Both of them are sort of getting up in age, but that being said, Reinier de Ridder has always found a way to get things done pretty much. You do also have to take into account that he did lose his last 2 fights in 1 championship. The level in 1 is not as good as it is in the UFC. So that's also going to be counting against him. It's a really tricky fight to call. I could easily see Kevin Holland winning by TKO. I could easily see de Ridder winning by submission. It's really going to come down to not so much whether Kevin Holland can stuff the takedowns, it's whether he can get back up, whether he can counter wrestle. Any other time, I would probably say Kevin Holland is going to lose this fight, but I think in this instance, he's probably got enough to get it done, and I'm going to say Kevin Holland via 2nd round, 3rd round TKO, or possibly decision. All right, next fight, we've got Beneil Dariush versus Manny Moicano. Dariush 22-6-1, Moicano 25-1. Iran versus Brazil, 5'10", 5'11". Both are lightweights, identical reach, and the leg reach slight advantage to Moicano. Moicano minus 225 favorite, Beneil plus 185. Looking at their last 5 for Beneil, coming off 2 losses to 2 of the toughest in the lightweight division, Arman Tsarukyan and Charles Oliveira. Before that, he beat Gamrot and Tony Ferguson and Diego Ferreira. So also 3-2 in his last 5. If we look at Moicano, has won his last 4. His last loss coming to Rafael dos Anjos way back in March of 2022, almost 3 years ago. It's been on quite a run since then. Okay, the Benoit Saint-Denis eye injury, but yeah, it was really just smashing him in that entire fight. Okay, so for me, guys, in this one, it's really going to come down to how well Beneil can find his momentum again, because he's been doing really well against people that are not sort of towards the top of the division. He's actually the next sort of step after the top guy. So it's definitely a bit of a boogeyman still in this division. For a guy like Moicano to go to the next level, to really see where he's at, if he's maybe 1 fight away from title contention, if he can win this, It's just going to be really how well does Beneil deal with those two losses? How well does he come back to find the form that he had before those losses? I think it's a bit too late for him. I think he's getting up there in age, even though Moicano is also similar age. If you just look at the complete contrast of where Moicano is at versus Dariush, I think Moicano wins this one, and I think Moicano wins via a incredibly dominant decision. All right, next up we got two former champions, Yuri Prohaska and Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill being Jamal Hill's biggest fan. I just had to throw that in there. 35-1 for Yuri, 12-2 and 0 with 1 no contest for Jamal. Czech Republic versus United States, 6-3, 6-4. Both light heavyweights. The reach advantage slight to Yuri, and the leg reach also slight to Yuri. Pretty even fight, minus 102 for Yuri, minus 118 for Jamal. Okay, looking at their last five, the only losses that Yuri's had have been to the current champion, Alex Pereira. So he is 3-2 in his last five with some really, really good wins. Stoppages of Dominic Reyes, stoppage of Glover Teixeira, and then of Rakic. We're looking at Jamal Hill. He's also lost only in his last five to Alex Pereira. Good wins over Glover Teixeira, Thiago Santos, Johnny Walker, and Jimmy Crute. So he is 4-1 in his last five. So for me, this is a bit trickier to call. I mean, it really depends on what type of Jamal Hill we're going to see. He is a bit of a tricky customer. He's really hard to finish and put away. Yuri Prohaska looked amazing until he met Alex Pereira, and he got knocked out by Alex Pereira twice. I'm not too sure that that's going to play too much into it. To be honest, both knockouts weren't very, very bad knockouts. I think you can recover from both of them. Took the second fight on slight short notice. So I think Yuri Prohaska definitely the better fighter of the two. Jamal Hill does have, I made the joke earlier about him being his biggest fan, but he does have that dog in him. It'll be interesting. It'll be a very, very interesting fight. Obviously, very close to call. That's why the bookies have it very, very even. Pretty much a pick 'em fight. And I can see it going either way. You know, Jamal Hill could eke out a decision in this one, particularly because it's only 3 rounds. I think if it was 5 rounds, you would favor Yuri to get a finish. But in this instance, because it's 3 rounds, you know, if he doesn't get a finish, I think it could be Yuri Prohaska by decision. But, you know, he's just such a good finisher that I do see him probably getting a TKO middle to late round 3. So Yuri Prohaska taking this one for me. Okay, so up next, Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. 18-4-0 for Merab, 18-0-0 for Umar. Georgia versus Russia, 5-6 versus 5-8. Both bantamweights, of course, for the bantamweight championship. 5 rounds. 68-69, slight advantage for Umar. Same thing with the leg reach. Umar's a heavy favorite in this one. He's minus 325. Merab is plus 260, which I think is a little bit disrespectful, a little bit crazy. But I guess, you know, with being 6-0 in the UFC, having a fairly dominant performance against Corey Sandhagen, I guess you could see that. But Merab's also been on a complete tear, so little bit lopsided. I think, you know, for those of you betting, I think this would be a good one to possibly go for Merab. But let's go a little bit more in detail on this one. Okay, before we get to that, let's just have a look at Merab's last 5. So it's like a real who's who. I mean, that is just a crazy list of people to beat. Started with Marlon Moraes way back down here in 2021. Okay, the loss is a grappling match. Jose Aldo beat him, beat Piotr Jan, beat Henry Cejudo, and then beat Sean O'Malley. I mean, talk about a who's who to beat in the bantamweight division. Those are all probably future Hall of Famers, all 5 of them. Okay, then we go have a look at Umar's last 5. Brian Kelleher, Nate Maness, Raoni Barcelos, Beksat Almaghan, and Corey Sandhagen. Not such an impressive list to beat as Merab, but nonetheless, all pretty much dominant performances. So for me, this fight's obviously going to come down to wrestling. Umar is an amazing grappler, even though he does have great stand-up as well, so it's not his only tool. Merab as well, just pressure fighter, particularly in the grappling exchanges. And I think Merab's going to come out and put pressure on Umar. I don't think it's going to be something that Umar has seen in the cage, really, not to that level anyway. Obviously, he trains with the Dagestani crew, so they have a whole host of grapplers and wrestlers that, you know, can prepare him probably the best that they could for someone like Merab. But until you're in there, I don't know that you can actually fully comprehend how much pressure Merab places. And I think if Merab can put the pace, I don't think he has to worry about getting knocked out by Umar. I don't think he needs to worry about Umar making him tired. I think he just really needs to worry mostly about counter wrestling. Now, I'm not talking about stuffing the takedown. talking about counter wrestling. There's a big difference between someone trying to take you down and you're trying to stop the takedown versus going, okay, well, I'm on my way down, but now I'm going to counter wrestle you and I'm going to try to get up. I'm trying to reverse you. I'm trying to scramble. And for these next two fights, that's going to be a very, very important point. So just bear that in mind. I think times that Umar will try to take Merab down, I think his counter wrestling is going to be good enough to reverse positions or to at least get up. And I think it's going to neutralize a lot of the attacks that Umar has been trying, or that Umar will try to do. That being said, just as easily, Umar could get him down. Merab, Merab won't be used to being taken down, pressured like that per se. So it could conversely go in Umar's favor. So it's a much closer fight to me than what the bookies make it out to be. I'm still torn between whether it's going to be Umar or whether it's going to be Merab. The whole time I was thinking Umar. Something in Merab just made it look like doesn't want to fight Umar. But now I've kind of changed my mind. I think Merab will get it done via decision, possibly split decision if it's a close fight, and they both get their wrestling off. Could be a tale of two halves in this fight. But I think Merab, he waited so long to become champion. It took him ages to get that shot and then to finally win the belt. I think he knows what it's like not to be champion. He knows what it's like to struggle. And now I think having a taste of being champion, I think he's going to want to stay there. And I think he's going to win by decision, possibly a split decision. So if you want to take a punt on Merab winning this fight. But I think definitely bet on this fight going all 5 rounds. Okay, now we get to the main event. And I'm just going to say, those of you that have been following the channel for a long time, you guys already know who I'm picking in this fight. But let's go have a closer look as to why I'm going to be picking him. So Islam 26-1-0, Arman 22-3-0, Russia versus Georgia 5-10, 5-7. The lightweight title, of course, 5 rounds. Reach advantage to Arman and leg reach advantage slight to Islam. Islam is, of course, a gigantic favorite, a heavy favorite, like Umar. Minus 380 odds for Islam, plus 300 odds for Arman. So again, if you guys want to take a punt in this one, Arman might be a great punt for you guys. All right, last 5 for Islam. Again, a who's who. Dustin Poirier, Volkanovski twice, Charles Oliveira, and yeah, that's where the who's who stops. No disrespect to Bobby Green, but he's not of that caliber. So 5-0, of course, in his last 5. Hasn't lost since all the way back in 2015. For Arman, he's beaten Charles Oliveira, Benil Dariush, Joaquim Silva, Damir Ismagulov, and his loss to Mateus Gamrot. Fairly close fight. Got them fight of the night honors, as you can see there. 4-1 in his last 5, but a lot of momentum in his last couple of fights. And of course, just to note, 2019, it's been almost 6 years since his fight with Islam. Okay, guys, so let's get to the breakdown. Okay, so Islam Makhachev, obvious pound for pound #1 in the world. You can debate with Tim or John Jones, but officially he is the #1 pound for pound in the world, and very, very well deserved, in all honesty. Beaten the who's who in fairly dominant fashion. I mean, the closest fight he's had in a long time, the closest 2 fights in the last 6 years have been Volkanovski 1 and Arman Tsarukyan 1 as well. Now Arman, again, was very young when that first fight happened. So was Islam. He was young in his UFC career. Arman Tsarukyan sort of took it on fairly short notice, but really, really impressed. I mean, his counter wrestling on such another level, and you go look at him grappling with Khamzat. I know it's not serious, I know it's not official or anything like that, but his counter wrestling is just ridiculous. It also shows you how good Khamzat is, because Khamzat did some crazy shit in that little grappling exchange of theirs. But the counter wrestling is very important. So again, it's not a thing of trying to stop the takedowns from Islam. He will obviously try to stop it as far as possible, but if he gets taken down, I don't think he's worried that it's going to stay there. And I think Islam also knows that. Now we all know Islam uses his wrestling to great effect. I mean, he takes people down, he holds them there, he wins rounds dominantly, he tires you out, he messes you up mentally. It's grueling to fight Islam, I can imagine. But if he's not able to hold Arman Tsarukyan down, then that takes away one of his biggest weapons. And for Arman, he showed in that first fight, it's going to be really hard to keep him down. And I think for Arman, having that knowledge, having that peace of mind that, okay, even if you get taken down, you can get back up. Mentally for Arman, that's going to be such a boost. Mentally for Islam, that's going to be such a knock, I feel. And I think Arman is going to have enough to keep the fight standing where it needs to be. Counter wrestle, possibly counter wrestle, and even end up on top himself. Now, Islam Makhachev, again, as I mentioned, has proven himself time and time again. He's about as unbeatable a fighter as there is at the moment. There's talks of him winning this fight, going up to 170, challenging 2 belts. Bilal, I think, was drunk when he said that he's going to go up to 85 and he could beat people like Dricus and Sean Strickland. That's definitely not happening. But there's talk of Islam possibly being the greatest lightweight of all time, better than Khabib, more complete than Khabib. So logic dictates that he will win this fight. But I've been saying it since 2023. Arman Tsarukyan is the man to beat Islam Makhachev. I think his counter wrestling wrestling's good enough. I think he's fit, he's strong, he's young, he's grown since the last fight. Islam's grown as well, but I think, when you're up here, the gap just gets smaller and smaller for the contenders coming up. It's harder to then keep increasing your level, even though Islam has increased his level. But for me, Arman Tsarukyan, he'll nullify the wrestling, he'll counter wrestle, possibly end up on top, possibly win via ground and pound. But I think I'm going to say he's going to win via decision. So if you're betting, bet on Arman Tsarukyan to win. If you want to take even more of a bet, bet on him to finish Islam Makhachev. If you want to be safe, say this fight doesn't go the full 5 rounds. So those are my predictions for UFC 311. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Who do you think is winning each of these fights on the main card? If you guys want to watch the UFC 311 live stream with me happening this weekend, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And as always, I'll see you guys next time. Cheers, everybody.